Good morning, everyone. Good evening, whatever it may be in your part of the world. I am back here on this lovely Tuesday with another recording of Midweek Modern Craftsman. You're going to have to excuse my appearance, my sound today. I look like shit. I feel like shit. I'm tired, a little bit sick, but I'm on here. I'm not going to bail on you. I want to spend this lovely Tuesday. I guess it'll be a lovely Wednesday with you guys. It's a Tuesday for me. It's my normal podcast day in the office. But I am not feeling too hot. I am not looking too hot. At least I have on my Phillies hat. I had a notification on my phone that the lineup cards were submitted. Opening day is this Thursday, which by the time you guys hear this, oh, no, you know what? By the time you hear this, it still would not have been opening day. I'm just recording this a day before it's released. I'm thinking I'm a week ahead, but I am not. So tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, will be opening day for the Phillies. So I'm excited about that. Spring's always a nice time of year. It's a fresh start. Flowers start to grow. Grass is turning green. It's a new start. It always reminds me of the end of wrestling season. When I was younger, it was always a long, painful winter, a lot of starvation, working hard, and then spring was time to unwind a little bit, take a quick break, and then get back to it. But again, excuse my appearance, excuse my sound. I am not feeling too hot. I woke up this morning around 3:45, 4 a.m., and I didn't feel good in bed, and I started coughing and choking, and I grabbed a cough drop, and I just wanted to make it get to work, so I chewed it, and my wife turned over to me and said, "Can you please not chew them? Just suck on them." And I decided to get up and go downstairs, so I didn't keep anyone awake, and I ended up not falling back asleep. So 4 a.m. is not my normal time to wake up. I'm tired. I also had, let me see, it's Tuesday. I had a race 2 days ago on Sunday, which was probably the toughest race in our Enduro series. It's very tight, very long, and my race season has not gone well so far. Um, I've been having bike issues with my two-stroke, which is my race bike. It's the bike I'm faster on. It's the bike I'm more comfortable on, more confident on, and I thought that I found the issue. I haven't ridden the bike really since before the new year, a little bit to try and see if anything sorted itself out or mess with it some, but I haven't really spent much time on it since before the new year because I've been having some power delivery issues with it. And I thought that I figured out what it was. I was pretty confident. So I said, screw it, I'm going to race it this weekend. And I got out, and within the first test, I immediately knew that my bike was not right. I think I crashed 3 times within the first test, which was about a 6-minute test, which is pretty short. I was going to, at that point, pull out for the rest of the day just because I can't afford to get hurt. But I decided I wanted to press through, try and make some on-bike adjustments. The morning was a huge struggle. After lunch, I tweaked some idle adjustments, which changed the ECU, and then I changed my power valve setting some, made it a little bit better, but it was still off, not good. So I struggled through the day. I think I took 73rd out of about 500 riders, which is I'm not happy with. I didn't feel good. I think I put the bike down about 8 times throughout the course of the race, which was around I think a 60, maybe 80-mile race. That doesn't include just smoking trees that didn't knock me down. So it wasn't a good race. I don't feel good. I got beat up pretty good. I'm very tired just from fighting my bike for that long of a race. I just didn't feel comfortable, and it wasn't behaving the way that I expected it to, or the way that I'm used to. So I fought the bike the whole time. I was riding tense. Everything was twice as hard to do. Nothing flowed. So I don't feel good. That aside, um, I told you guys last week that I was going to talk about my ski trip that I recently went on. So, for years, I've heard how amazing Whistler, British Columbia is, how amazing the skiing is. I've also wanted to go there in the summer. It just looks absolutely beautiful, and I've never had a chance to. With family, business, work, my wife does not ski, my kids do not ski. So it would be a pretty selfish vacation for me to drag them along to. Or maybe it's more selfish that I went away and didn't bring them. That's probably the case, but I'll keep telling myself otherwise. Um, so I've been wanting to go out there. It hasn't happened. Um, I recently spent a week in Belize with my family at my dad and stepmom's house. And a few weeks later, I left the country again to go to Whistler, British Columbia with my dad and stepmom. The family stayed home this time. One of her sons came along and we skied. I think we're out there for 5 days. We skied 4 days in a row. The house was ski on, ski off. It was at Whistler, Blackcomb. The skiing was incredible. Being away for 2 weeks, leaving the country twice within a month was difficult and created some stress and project issues. Luckily, I have amazing customers, and especially this customer who I've worked for years. Kind of sprung it on her, and I projected how that conversation was going to go in my head for a long time, and she had zero issues with it and is an amazing customer, very understanding, and I couldn't ask for a better customer there. So she made that a lot easier. But I still was pretty stressed out about leaving and about coming back and wanting to catch back up on schedule. So um, the trip was incredible. It it really is an amazing place. It's a fairly new ski area. I think it was developed in the 80s. um, they built the village there and the ski mountain. The Winter Olympics were there not too long ago, and it's just a really pretty area. Unfortunately, we drove in at night very late and we left very early in the morning, so we weren't able to drive through Vancouver and into the mountains in the daylight to see it, and that's part of my favorite one of my favorite aspects of taking ski trips or trips to places I haven't been, or driving in and out and just seeing what the landscape looks like and the buildings and the scenery. And we weren't able to do that, but I got my fair share of it skiing, and it truly was incredible. It was absolutely amazing, stunning. I may have spent more time taking photos and sending them to Rachel than I did skiing. Um, we were skiing one area, one lift area, and it was just so breathtaking. The views, 360-degree views, that I was like, I don't have to ski. I could just sit here and look around and stand on my skis and be perfectly content. But if you ever have the opportunity and you do ski or snowboard, it's a really nice area. Um, the skiing is absolutely incredible. The Everyone who works at the resort is very nice. They have a bunch of kids programs. Apparently, the local kids will go. You can sign them up for a program. One of Rachel's coworkers lives out there, and she brings her kid to the ski mountain for school once a week. So instead of having in class school, they go to the ski mountain and they ski once a week. So there's a lot of young kids, little kids on the ski mountain, but it's not everywhere else that I've skied. The young kids, the teenagers, are pretty typical of how I was as a teenager. You're rude, you're wild, you're inconsiderate. You possibly drink beer while skiing, litter, um, just a little lack of respect for your surroundings and everyone around you. And that was not the case in Whistler. I saw two pieces of trash on the mountain for the 4 days that I skied there, and I skied full days, none of which were beer cans. Um, Really, nobody smoking weed, partying. Everyone was very respectful. You didn't have large groups of kids skiing out of control, making a huge scene, and terrorizing people. So it was a nice a place that you could bring your family. It was a place that you can go and ski and not have to worry about that or feeling nervous if you're not the strongest skier. They have skiing for every ability level. And the cool thing about it is that you can ski with advanced skiers and beginner skiers, take the same lift up, and then be able to ski whatever you want. So I'll get into that a little bit more in this podcast. Um, if you haven't, we have the website up and running. It's moderncraftsman.co. And these blog posts, the written blog posts, are on the website now. So if you listen to them, if you want to supplement that with a written blog post, go on, check it out, read them, let me know what you think, spread the word, let everyone know about it. But definitely hop on the website, take a look around, read the written posts that are supplementing these recorded podcasts, and let me know what you think. I appreciate it as always. But I didn't grow up skiing. I was one of 5 kids. My dad was self-employed. My mom didn't work. So we really didn't have the time, the money to be able to go skiing. It's a fairly expensive sport between rentals, taking the vacation, lift passes, all the gear. And honestly, with kids, it's not that much fun. Um, excuse me. um, I can't imagine my parents taking 5 of us skiing. It would just be insane, and we definitely didn't have the money. If we were to have gone skiing to take lessons, that just would be completely out of the price range. So I didn't ever grow up skiing. The first time I went skiing, I was probably in 7th or 8th grade, and one of my childhood friends' families had a timeshare up in Vermont, and they took me. I didn't know if I wanted to ski or snowboard, rented both. Took snowboard lessons for a couple of days, but never took ski lessons. Essentially, I put skis on and I could ski. Not well at that point, but at 13 years old, however you are in 7th grade, 8th grade, I was essentially fearless, relatively athletic and coordinated. So skiing was never a problem. Took the lift up to the top of the mountain, skied down, no issues. So I had at that point I skied maybe once in 7th grade, once in 8th grade, just not something my family did. So I did go away or take a day trip with the community center that would put on a ski trip. We'd hop on a bus and everyone would go skiing together. I had a couple of friends who skied a fair amount. So sometimes I would go with them, but it was definitely never with my family. Not until I was in high school. My parents split up. My dad was looking for things to do as a family, on his side of things, and he took us skiing a couple of times. I know he had bought my younger brother skis. I was skiing at that point on my own, so we skied a few times together. But I always enjoyed it. We would always ski the Poconos, go up to Montreal. There's some skiing. Vermont. There's a couple places in North Jersey that we would go with friends, but I would ski a little bit, probably as much as the average person skis. I wasn't an avid skier. I never took lessons. I never took it too seriously. And then when I got done high school, I actually went out to University of Colorado, and it's very inexpensive to ski as a student there. I had some friends that were in my dorm that's parents did fairly well for themselves, and they had a house that was ski on Aspen Highlands. So we would go and ski there on a student rate, which was I think $300 for an all mountain pass. Excuse me, that you could ski all of the Front Range unlimited times, and then you got I think 10 days at Vail, Aspen, Beaver Creek. So I did a fair amount of skiing when I was 18, 19, and then I left school there and I came back home, and that ski bug had bit me. I was with a lot of kids who skied a lot. I skied a lot. My skills progressed fairly quickly at that point. Again, still young, ton of energy, basically still fearless at 18, 19 years old. So I got pretty good pretty quickly. And I really enjoyed skiing. So when I moved back home, I took a fair amount of ski trips. I would go up to Vermont, a couple times a year. When I met Rachel when I was at Drexel, her parents have a house up in upstate New York that's just fairly close to Hunter, Wyndham, Bel Air, up in the Catskills. So I skied there a ton. I tried to convince Rachel to ski when I was courting her, and I guess she was courting me. But she didn't take to it that well. She skied a couple times. We had a friend in college who, this is when we were at Drexel, whose parents did fairly well again and had a house that was out in the canyons of Utah. And we skied that. Rachel came out and skied with her friends. But I found out later that she actually hated skiing. It scared the shit out of her, and she only did it because I liked to do it, and she wanted to do that for me. So, needless to say, Rachel stopped skiing, has not gone back to skiing, and with kids and life and business, it hasn't happened. Prior to this trip to Whistler, the last time I'd been skiing was right before the pandemic hit. So we were up at her parents' house in Athens, New York. Again, it's about 45 minutes from the ski mountains in the Catskills. Wyndham, typically we would go to, and I was like, I want to bring Selby skiing. At this point, Selby's 9 now, so she was 6, and Tilly was 3. Um, Selby's now 9, Tilly is 6. So essentially, Selby was Tilly's age now when I wanted to take her skiing, which is a good age. There's kids who start before they can walk to ski, and they're maniacs. And they'll ski anything that their parents ski, steeps, bumps, glade runs. It doesn't matter. They grow up skiing. 6 for me is a decent age for a kid to start. They're young enough that they're not afraid. They're fairly malleable and can adapt to a lot of things. They learn quickly. They're not too young that it's a lot of work on the parent. If they pick it up, you can ski with them fairly easily, and it's not going to be too much work on you. Prior to that, it's a lot of work getting them on and off the lift, dressed, keeping their stuff together, getting them up when they fall, holding them on a harness to teach them to ski. Um, so I wanted to bring Selby skiing. We loaded up. Rachel was going to spend the day at the lodge with Tilly, maybe take her to do some snow tubing. So we rented all of Selby's stuff. I had a harness for her to ski in front of me. It was a little backpack that she wore, and then I could hold essentially 2 leashes to keep her in front of me. I'd ski in a wedge, and she would learn to ski. So we got her all dressed up, and Tilly, who was 3 at this point, was just, she had to ski. There was no convincing her otherwise. And I was so excited to see her want to do something that badly that I was like, whatever, like we'll just get her a kid's lift pass and put her on skis. I'll ski with Selby, and Rachel, you can take her not even to the bunny slope, but almost just the little slope when you're coming into the lodge, and she can practice there. So I go up with Selby, we do a run or two, and I come down. Needless to say, kids are so cute on skis. I was even sending Rachel um, videos of little kids skiing. It makes me so happy, and they're so cute, and they're just so self-sufficient. They're these little humans. They're just like shrunken down adults that can ski. Um, so I come down with Selby, and Tilly is laying on her back next to the lodge at the bottom of this little hill, and Rachel's sitting there extremely angry, and Tilly's just screaming and crying and kicking and refusing to get up. And Rachel's like, I can't do this. I can't handle her. She's too much. And this is really when Tilly had turned from being like our angel baby to somewhat of a maniac. And Rachel's like, I can't teach her to ski. It's too much. So I, at that point, tried juggling, taking Selby up a run, and then bringing Tilly up with me, and basically skiing, holding Tilly with her feet just hovering over the ground. Um, so that was very short lived. Neither one of us had the patience to handle that for too long. So it was pretty much a failed attempt to ski. If we were going to ski more, I would have put them in lessons. I wanted to be with them the first time, but what had happened, I don't know if you guys recall this, but a few years ago we had this global pandemic that hit. Well, that was basically rearing its head when we were skiing. So we were in New York, and it was when word started to spread, hey, like, this is happening. This pandemic is about to hit, and New York was going to be the first state and city to be shutting down. I think the city had already been impacted a little bit, but it hadn't spread anywhere. So we were there on the weekend. I think by Tuesday or Wednesday, New York had shut down. So it was spring of 2020, and that obviously we weren't skiing anymore that year. And life just turned upside down. Everything was so chaotic. Business was chaotic. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And we essentially forgot about skiing. A few years later, I started getting outside and dirt biking more and got the girls involved with dirt biking. So skiing just, it wasn't happening. It's expensive, and putting the kids in lessons. We have enough going on. And we spent less time up at Rachel's lake house. So we spent the short amount of time that we would spend there. I wasn't going to haul the girls off for a day to go skiing where it was supposed to be downtime. But realistically, it's not a lot of downtime skiing with the kids. So we stopped skiing. I hadn't skied since then. Um, and until that point, from the time I was 18 until then, I skied a fair amount. So I never really thought about it that much. Rachel didn't enjoy it. I wasn't going to drag her out. To ski by yourself is fun, but again, it's like if we go to the lake and it's family time, right? We're there to spend family time, and then I peace out for the day and go skiing and leave Rachel with the kids. It was complicated, and it never happened. So my dad recently had both of his knees replaced, so he hasn't skied in a few years. So he was getting the itch to ski, and his wife had torn her ACL last time she went out skiing. She hadn't skied in a few years, so everyone wanted to ski again. And he got a hold of me. It was like, "Hey, do you want to go skiing? We're going to go skiing. We're going to get a house and go skiing." And I assumed it would just be somewhere on the East Coast, spend a few days, quick trip. And he was like, Karen, who's my stepmom, he said, Karen's thinking about going to Whistler. And I was like, okay, when? And he told me, and I was like, that's really close to when we're going to Blease, but I'd always wanted to go to Whistler. So I talked to Rachel, and she's like, do it. So I signed up, and I got my skis out. I got all my gear down from the attic. A lot of it's pretty old at this point. But I was like, I haven't skied that much. I'm not buying new ski gear to go out for a week. Everything it's in decent shape. I have good skis, but I had this vision of me being the 35 to 40-year-old out wearing his college skis, everything looking super old and dated. It wasn't really the case, but I was cracking up putting on all my old stuff, and I was like, I'm not buying new stuff to go ski. It's expensive. I was like, I'll rock my old stuff and be able to ski fine on it. And if people want to laugh, they laugh. It really wasn't that bad. And there were people there with way older stuff than me, but everything held up well. I'm glad I didn't spend the extra money. I did get a new helmet. Not that anything was wrong with my older helmet, but I do think that helmet technology and the MIP system and the liner has changed enough, and my brain is valuable enough that I don't want to damage that. So I got a new helmet and went skiing. And Whistler was incredible. I told you in the beginning of the podcast a little bit about the ski mountain and skiing there, and family friendly and clean. But the mountain range out there, it's it's interesting. It's not a super high elevation, like the Rockies. So the air isn't too light. You're not getting very tired, but the mountains are just very expansive and very wide. So what they lack in elevation changes, they make up for in the expanse of these mountains and how much you can actually ski. So if you've skied out west, if you've skied on the East Coast, you ride up a chairlift and there's designated trails. And it's not necessarily ribbon, but if there's a portion that they don't want you to ski, they ribbon it off, they rip it off, and you don't ski there. If you want to ski bowls out west, if you want to ski off trail, you have to hike and you have to ski at your own risk. So you ride up a ski lift and you see all the designated trails. Everything that's off trail, you're not supposed to ski. Again, if you want to ski a bowl, you have to hike it, and then that's backcountry. That's at your own risk. Um, so Whistler was very different. Everything was skiable. So you would ride up the chairlift or the gondola, and you would see the groomed trails, but everything off of the groomed trail was fair game. So you would see the face of a mountain, and there were ski lines everywhere. It just like normally when you see a mountain, you see trees and you see runs. Whistler was like, I see a mountain and I see a groomed run that they run groomers on at night for the people who want who are less advanced or just want to go ski down groom runs, and they go from the middle lift up to the top of the mountain. They have these groomers, but off of those groomers are double blacks. There's bowls that you can get to. There's glade or tree runs that you can get to. There's cornices, there's cliffs, anything that you want to ski, and it's all off of these groomed runs. So again, when you look at this mountain, it's not like, oh yeah, I see you. Let's do that run. Let's do that run. It's like you can get off the lift and ski whatever direction you want on anything you want and end up on a run at another lift and back up to the top of the mountain, or skiing all the way down to the base and getting on the gondola and getting all the way back up. That was incredible to me, where you would just look at this mountain and say, essentially, you're not limited to ski runs. There's nothing limiting you to what you can ski. And that's not the way anything that I have skied before is. Even there's a few bowls on the one side of Whistler, and they essentially, there's a lift and a T-bar that will get you up pretty close to those bowls, and then they took a snowcat and they groomed up to the top of them. So although there's not a lift that will bring you up there, you can hike up groomed ski runs, groomed groomers to the top of these bowls and then ski them down to a lift. Everything else is typically skinning up the mountain in whatever snow and conditions are there. So even their ski runs and bowls that a lift does not serve, they made very easy to get to with minimal hiking. And again, there were some T-bars that even brought you up further than the lifts would serve a lot of time. So it was insane, the amount of skiing, how much steep runs they had, how many glade runs they had, cliffs, cornices, essentially backcountry that was accessible via lifts. So you would be riding up the ski lift with the person who's going to ski blues and greens. You would hang a right, they would hang a left. They would ski groomers down, and you could go do a bowl run or a cliff run or a steep run, a double black, whatever you wanted, essentially right off the same lift. Um, so that was really, really cool. They also built this gondola that essentially took you from the peak of Whistler to the peak of Blackcomb Mountain, which they're two mountains they're both on the same lift pass. But before, excuse me, oh, I'm tired all of a sudden. Before, you would have to park at separate resorts and take those lifts. So you wouldn't be skiing both in one day. So they created this peak to peak lift that you could ski on Whistler or Blackcomb, take your skis off, hop in a gondola, take an 11-minute gondola ride to the peak of the other mountain and ski it. So you wanted to ski both, you could bounce back and forth to both mountains multiple times in a day and be to the other mountain like boots on, skis off to back on within 11 minutes, which is pretty insane. The engineering of this gondola is also insane. It is not now, but for up until recently was the longest free span post to post of any gondola or chairlift in the world. I think it's 1.8 miles between the longest span of posts. So essentially, they have posts supporting this, and 1.8 miles between them, free span that these cables and gondolas are hanging from, which is insane to witness in person. And just you're on that gondola so far and so high above the valley between these two peaks, looking down, and you're just like, I'm hanging with all of these other people on a cable, 3 cables, but like cables that don't look like they're big enough to support this. So that was a really cool part of those mountains that I had never seen before, as far as just being accessible from mountain to mountain and not having to get in a car or take multiple lifts and try and ski over and get back. And it's an all day affair. Um, so that was really cool. Um, all the skiing was great. We had great weather. It was getting up to 35, 40 every day. We didn't get any fresh snow, which was a bummer. But the nice thing was it was warm enough during the day that it would soften up the snow. So I think they had like an 8-foot base, and it would soften enough of the snow that anything off groomers by mid morning throughout the rest of the day wouldn't be hard packed. The bumps wouldn't be too icy or beat up, and it was soft enough to be able to ski. It was a little bit heavy, being that it was softening up. So some of the steep stuff was a bit of a challenge, just because it was so much work holding an edge. And my legs are not that strong, not having skied in a bunch. So you drop off of something and go to lay an edge down, or be able to push into a turn, and the snow would just be so heavy that my legs wouldn't be able to hold, and I would just go downhill. I wouldn't be able to resist the G force there. But it was warm, it was nice, it was sunny. It was really nice spring ski weather. Again, the only downfall, a little bit of the heavy snow. Skiing that on steep stuff was a little bit of a challenge with weak, unconditioned legs, but it was really cool trip. So if you do enjoy skiing and you have not been, or you take frequent trips out west to the Rockies, Utah, wherever your favorite ski spots are out west. I know some people ski in Idaho. I would recommend going a little bit further and checking out Whistler. People who are out in California probably ski Big Bear, Mammoth, stuff like that. Go north a little bit further, take the trip, go up to Whistler. Absolutely incredible. You will not regret it. In hindsight, my family would have loved just being out there. There's enough stuff to do that is unski related, even during the winter, that it just experiencing the mountains and the views and the scenery it's absolutely incredible. And it was a 5-hour plane ride and not that much work at the end of the day. So if you ever have an opportunity to go out and ski Whistler, it was really, really cool. If you're not an avid skier, if you've never skied before, it would be a great place to learn. You don't have to be intimidated. The mountains, when you drive into Utah or Colorado, the mountains are so tall and they get so big so fast that it's very daunting driving into them, especially if you're not a strong skier, because you just see the size of these mountains and you're like, holy shit, these are huge. What am I going to do? Driving into Whistler and seeing the mountains again, they're not so tall that they're daunting to you. It's not that intimidating. Um, they're expansive, and there's so much square mileage of skiing, um, longitudinally as well. So it's not an intimidating place to ski. The other thing is that there's not the I guess a lot of the young kids, and we were there on spring break for a lot of kids, and there just wasn't groups of teens and college kids that were being assholes like I used to be, terrorizing people on the ski lifts, on the ski mountain, running around like, I don't know, assholes, partying. It wasn't like that. So a lot of times for beginner skiers, that can create a lot of anxiety and fear and not make the experience so enjoyable. And it's not like that out there. Again, it was super clean. Everyone was super friendly. There's no ego out there. Everyone's just out there to experience that level of skiing and be outside and experience these mountains. So even if you've never skied before and you want to learn to ski, there's a ton of beginner skiing, and it's a great place, and a very low anxiety producing mountain to ski. And then as your skills progress, you can ski whatever you want off of the same lift. So you can ski up with the beginners and then take a more advanced run down, whatever you want to do. You know, I skied with my dad and his wife a lot, who at this point, my dad's 70, his wife's 60, and they don't ski and they hadn't skied in 3 years. So we would ride up the lift together. They would ski groomers. I would pick runs or steeps that led me back onto the groomer, and I'd meet them halfway down, check in on them, see if they're good. Okay, you guys are going to take this run. I'll meet you down at this point, and then we'll meet down at the lift from there on out. Or I could ski a bump run, or I could ski glades. I could ski right off trail through tight glades, and they could ski on the groomers. So everyone was happy. Everyone was content. Everyone got to ski what they wanted to ski, and it was a really good trip, and it was fun. And at this point, the whole time I was out there, I was like, I wish my girls were out here. I wish Rachel was out here, not to ski, just to be with me. And I wish that Selby and Tilly could experience that, because I never got to experience that when I was a kid. And I do remember at 13, the first time that I went skiing up in Vermont, and I remember getting there too late in the day to ski. So we took our rentals and we hiked up the bunny slope and just skied that probably until midnight. Just taking our stuff off, hiking back up, and then skiing down it, just because it was so exciting. And it's so cool as a kid to see snow and to be on this mountain and just the quietness and the stillness of it. So if you haven't skied, it's not too late to learn to ski. If you skied when you were younger, it's something that you'll be able to pick back up fairly quickly. Take it at your own pace. Obviously, be careful. But being back and skiing again, other than the weak legs, and remembering how tight and uncomfortable my boots are, I really want to get Selby and Tilly out probably next year. It's probably a little late in the season here. I might be able to get out to New York once this year with them. I'm not sure. It's been a fairly mild winter here, and we have gotten zero snow. I'm not sure what it looks like up there, just because it hasn't been on my radar. But I really want to get the girls out and get them in some lessons next year. I don't see us as a family that's spending a ton of time on the mountains and skiing, but once or twice a year, I think it would be fun. And I think that it's a really special experience for kids, to do that and to have that skill set down the road, to be able to do something and get outside during the wintertime and not feel like you're cooped up in the house and there's nothing to look forward to when it's cold. So I really want to do that next year. So make sure you guys hold me accountable to that, and make sure I get these kids out skiing and spend some money on them and not just selfishly on myself to take trips to Whistler. Um, so that's it. That's my podcast for this week. I wanted to brief you guys on that trip, tell you about Whistler, how amazing, how incredible it was, how nice the people were, how nice the resort were. Obviously, I am not sponsored by Whistler, but that would be sick. I don't really see the line between them and me, but that would be sick. But yeah, check it out if you can. Get outside. Winter's almost over. Springtime's rolling in. Go have some fun outside before this winter lets up. If you guys do ski, snowboard, whatever it is, Let me know. If you have been out there, shoot me an email. Let me know what your favorite part is. If there's other places that you've skied that you love, reach out to me. As always, spread the word on this podcast, on the main Modern Craftsman podcast. Hop on iTunes if you can, leave us a review. It really helps us remain relevant within the podcast world. It brings value to our sponsors and our partners like Anderson and Builder Trend, all of our past sponsors that we have had, Rockwool, Duration for a long time, Reno Run, Kukin Brothers. There's been so many people who have provided us with an opportunity with this podcast. Obviously, our listenership and our everyone who supports us and backs us and hops on every week and reposts this and sings our praises. We wouldn't do this. We couldn't do this without you. So as always, I appreciate it. And please keep spreading the word. Leave us a review. It all helps. And we don't really ask for much other than that. So if you can do it, I'd be forever indebted to you. All right, guys and girls, have a good week. I will circle back with you next week. I have a handful of topics. I've been getting a ton of emails from people. Again, if I don't respond to you, what I'm essentially doing now is your email comes in, I flag it, I put it in a section of my notes. So as I'm going through on a weekly basis and I'm looking for podcast topics, I can then revert to your email and do a podcast on that. So if I do not respond, it's because I read your email. I maybe didn't want to respond right away. I hit an unread and then I put that in a folder to get to. So if you haven't heard from me, I'm not ignoring you. I'm saving all of these emails. I am very grateful for you guys reaching out and asking your questions and providing me with the information needed to be able to help you guys. So don't stop emailing me. You can follow up with another email. But if I don't respond, it's not because I don't appreciate it or I didn't see it. I'm just keeping you guys in the list as to how these come in and what's applicable and kind of speaks to me on a weekly basis and what I want to hop on here and record and write a blog post about. So I appreciate all the emails that have come in. It's been great and super refreshing to see. If there's something more specific, as Nick mentioned on the last podcast, I can book a consulting call with you one-on-one that we can dig into something and I can follow that up with the podcast. So if you have something specific that's pressing that you need me to carve time aside for, a lot of times that's the best way to do it. And then we can follow up after that. There is a book now button on my Instagram business page. So you can check that out as well. But thanks again, everyone. Have a good week. I will catch up with you next week. Hopefully I feel better and maybe have fixed my bike at that point so that I'm not such a hot mess and riding the struggle bus on every one of these races. I'm 37 at this point and I'm too old to be riding like that and crashing that much. So hopefully I'll be able to circle back shortly in better spirits, feeling better physically, emotionally, and not be sick. And also, hopefully, I've gotten some sleep. All right, guys and girls, thank you. I will see you next week.